We learn about data hazards and we learn how to solve them. Are we all good now? Turns out, no, we are not. Forwarding does not always solve all of our problems. Let's look at an example. Before we looked at a simple R-type instruction, an add instruction. Stalling and forwarding were great solutions. But what if I have a load instruction? Okay, if I have a load instruction, now the result of my actual computation, when I'm going to be storing in T0, isn't ready at the end of this stage. It's ready at the end of this stage, right? The memory stage. So why is that a problem? I can't forward anymore because I need to forward back in time. Recall, forwarding was our way of solving our problems because we didn't want to stall. So we were able to draw an arrow between here and here. But now this result is available at the end of this stage, but I need it at the beginning of the same cycle in another stage. So therefore, it's actually not possible. It turns out forwarding fails here. And so what are we forced to do? We need to just bite the bullet and we need to stall when it comes to these kinds of instructions, right? Now, there's actually more. Load is not the only one. And I want you to think about it, right? This is an issue with timing. The data just physically isn't ready in enough time for a forwarding to help. So I need to stall any instruction that is dependent on the results of this load in this case, which kind of sucks. So what are we going to do? We're actually going to stall. So we might as well talk about, since it's a forced evil at this point, how do we actually stall? Well, in actuality, our hardware is actually able to solve the pipeline. So if our compiler for some reason fails to put in a no-op, our hardware will do it itself. And it's called a hardware interlock when it does it. So what it essentially does is, okay, it will do, the load word and whatnot. So it will be in stage 1, and then stage 2, and then stage 3. And then at this point, it will see that we have an issue, right? At this point, it will see that there's a data hazard between the sub instruction and the load word instruction, right? Here, we know we have a load word and we know we're writing to T0. Here, I know I have a sub and I'm reading from T0. So then what's my hardware going to do? It's actually going to physically stall my pipeline. Like, as you can see here, it will literally bubble it for a bit. So it turns out that this is actually going to execute its first two stages first, and then it's going to wait a little bit before it can go again. And same thing for the and, right? As you can see, this gets executed from one stage, it's going to wait, and then it'll continue. And this one is just going to get bubbled from the beginning. So this hardware interlock is how it's actually happening if we forget to put a no-op in our code. But functionally, it's the same as a no-op, right? It's still just shifting everything over for when it's getting executed, right? So it's either the hardware does it itself or we insert a no-op. So what's the difference? Well, if we insert the explicit no-op, this uses more code space, okay? Terminology-wise, we call the instruction right after the load delay slot. Why? Because there's literally a delay after these load instructions if there's a data hazard, right? So if I'm using if I look at my load delay slot when I'm trying to find a data hazard, right? And therefore I will choose what should be executed in there. Should it be a no-op that's executed from my load delay slot, or should it just be the next instruction? Okay, so is there a way to actually fix this? Are we screwed? Is there some way that I can leverage the load delay slot, or I can leverage something to avoid the stall? Yes, there is. If our compiler or us are smart enough to actually utilize this load delay slot and execute an instruction that will not have a data hazard, then I don't need to stall anymore. Let's say I want to code something up. All right, so I have this piece of RISC-V code where I want to add together A and B, put it in D, and A and C, and put it in E. And right now, it's going to take 13 cycles. Well, why? I have these very, very few lines. Where am I getting all these cycles from? It's because there's some data hazards. So let's look where these data hazards can come from, right? So I'm going to start at the top. T1. Is there a data hazard with T1? Well, I'm reading from T1 down here, and assuming that I have forwarding and a double pumping, we're actually fine. This instruction in the middle that's in our load delay slot is actually going to be okay. It's actually going to be the kind of bubble/buffer that's going to allow us to forward here. So we're all good with T1. Let's look here. What about T2? There is, right? Because it appears right after it. So even though I can forward and even though I can double pump, I still need to wait. I still am forcing a stall. So it looks like that we're good. So that we need to take that. Got to kind of bite the bullet there. Let's look at T3 next. It looks like we're writing to T3 here and we're writing to T3 there, but we're not reading from T3, so no data hazard. Let's look next. What about T4? Well, I'm writing to T4 there, and I'm reading from T4 there, and there's no instruction in the delay slot to kind of buffer it for us. So we have another stall there as well. And then lastly, we have T5, but I'm only writing to T5 both times, so I'm good. So therefore, I have these instructions, and I have all the stalls incurred by them, so therefore, overall, I have a total of 13 cycles. If you want to convince yourself of why it's 13, you can just write out the overall logic and see, remember, there's a little bit of latency. I think you have to go through the whole 5 steps, or the 5 cycles themselves, taking account for the stalls, you get a total of 13. How can I solve this? Well, I can switch things around, right? So the first thing that I can do is I could just rearrange the order of these loads. This dealio with T4 is completely unnecessary to put it down here. I can actually just move it up there and it'll be fine. And now that that's the load delay slot, I'm actually buffering this enough. I've basically bubbled it. So now this no longer incurs a hazard, right? And same thing is there as well, right? So I can keep this add instruction down there, right? And I just shift this add down and move the load up, right? So moving the loads earlier, right? That way, whatever's in their load delay slot is not reliant on the previous load, eliminates the data hazard, right? So this takes a little bit more of higher level thinking than before, right? This is something that your compiler or you will have to do. The hardware cannot force this anymore, right? So the hardware was able to force a no-op if our compiler missed it, but in this case, we are actually able to fix it ourselves. This is what your compiler will do. Now, is this always possible? No, actually, sometimes it might not be possible. So in that case, we're going to need to force the stall, and therefore might actually need to have a hardware interlock that will happen, or your compiler will realize it and insert a no-op. But hopefully you can see that by reordering this instruction, right, and strategically placing the orders of our loads, that way the logic of what I'm executing is still the same, but I'm avoiding all possible stalls. I can reduce the amount of time that I need. Right, so now I only need 11 cycles instead of 13. This ends up adding up big time, right? Now, if you're curious about how is my compiler so smart to be able to do this, it turns out our compilers are actually very smart. So as we'll see at the end of today's lecture, the ability to reorder instructions to actually minimize the amount of stalls necessary is something that compilers nowadays are very, very, very good at doing, right? And it's a very good skill to have as well. But you will be playing the role of the compiler for the sake of this class. So that's it for data hazards. So we basically saw what are data hazards. It's when I want to read and write from a register, right? I want to read from a register, but it hasn't been written to yet. So I would be using in like an out-of-date value. So solution number one was just to stall the pipeline. That's great. It works. Insert your no-op or just let the hardware do it itself via hardware interlock. In the case of this class, we will always just be inserting the no-op ourselves. We will not be relying on the hardware. Okay, well, what if I don't want to stall? Well, then you could forward, right? Just take the results from previous stages and directly wire them to the stages that we wish to. That was a helpful thing. Does forwarding always work? As we just saw, no. In the case of load instructions, it is physically impossible to get forwarding to work, so therefore I'm forced to still stall. However, does that mean I always have to stall? As we just saw, no, not always, right? So there's always a but maybe, but maybe, but maybe. So here, if you're able to smartly rearrange the order of your instructions, you can avoid there being the forced stall when it comes to load instructions. So keep this in mind when looking for data hazards. See what tools you have at your disposal. Can we forward? Can we use double pumping? If so, try to maximize the use of those as much as possible. If not, and if you still have some stalls left over due to these load instructions or other instructions that don't even allow forwarding to work in the first place, see if you could rearrange the order of some of the instructions. Just remember the caveat. Even though you're rearranging the order of them, it still needs to behave the same way. The code cannot all of a sudden execute something different. It needs to do the same thing. The order of the instructions just shouldn't matter. So those are data hazards, and those are how we solve them.